advisor with the Career Development Center, and I'll be one of the presenters today. Thanks for joining us.
And my name is Jody Buram. I'm a career counselor here at the Career Development Center, and I will also be working with Danny today.
So today's topic would be how to explore majors and careers using the resources that you already have access through our Career Development Center website. So we'll show you how to use those tools, and in addition, we'll show you how to connect with the career counselors or advisors like myself and Jody to help you explore those majors or careers that you're interested in. Before we get started on that information, we do want to make an announcement that this presentation will be recorded and made available for you at a later time through our website. So if you want to watch this information again, will be available to you. And we also have a chat feature active. So if you look at, okay, I'll speak a little louder. If you have in your screen, when you look at the bar menu options, you can type your questions and we can answer them throughout the presentation, or we may get to them towards the end. We have a Q&A portion of this presentation. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen to show you our Career Center website. Okay. Jody, do you want to tell them about our website?
All right. So the biggest thing is when you go to our website, it's just the Fresno State /careers. And on there, the biggest area that you really want to go to is if you scroll down, you will see these blue circles. And these are your go-to 24/7 available resources. We have the Career Success Guide that's there. We also have What Can I Do with a Major? We're going to be discussing that today. We have our Major and Job Outlook. That's another thing we're going to be discussing. And then we also have the Pathway You link. Additionally, we have career spots and standout. Each of them have a little blurb underneath that tells you exactly what that allows you to go and link into. It's very important to link directly through this site because some of them we do have subscriptions, and so if you just Googled it, you won't be going to the correct site. And sometimes they'll actually ask you to pay. The other area that we're going to jump into, though, is what can I do with this major? So a lot of you are on here today because you're undeclared or you're not quite sure if you're in the right major, and that's perfectly fine. 3 out of 4 students typically will change their major at least once, and you're not alone. I myself changed my major 5 times in 1 year, and I'm the one giving advice, right? But What Can I Do with a Major is a really great resource. So if you scroll down, we're just going to choose psychology. All of the various majors are listed there. Psychology is just one that gives a lot of good information. And waiting. Okay, so when you get to psychology, there's the non-print version, but I always prefer just going to that print version, which is directly under a major title. And the main reason is because it cleans it up. The information is very easily seen. So you have the areas that you could go into, the employers that hire those areas, and then ultimately strategies you need to be working on as a freshman or sophomore, even into your junior and senior, to make sure that you are employable at the end. So when we think of psychology, what happens is most people will actually say, I want to go into psychology because I want to help others. I want to be a counselor. That's only one component. If you notice under human services, it says direct care. And that's where the direct care of the counseling, but there's so much more that you could go into. The employers is actually Google searches, not necessarily employer names. And this is very beneficial because a lot of you will decide to stay here within California and specifically here within the Fresno County. So having the Google searches will help you explore a little bit more. So if we scroll down, we have human services. We also have research that you could go into. Additionally, you could go into education and higher education as being even like a career counselor like I am. You continue to scroll down, you could work in human resources, work at very large companies, and then also businesses. The thing about when you look at the job titles like sales, a lot of times students, you would already have this idea of what that means, but be very careful of putting your judgment towards it because there are a lot of different jobs that's out there. But it's different if you look at it in the viewpoint of having a bachelor's degree. So don't just say, oh, well, sales is working at, let's say, Target as a cashier. That indeed is somewhat of a sales, but that's not necessarily what sales means with a bachelor's degree. So really keep an open mind when looking at these. And at the very last page on here, which is really great, there's general information. Kind of gives you, hey, a heads up of what this major is all about. But additionally, it'll talk about if it typically requires a master's degree or a doctorate degree. If you think about a master's degree, it will talk about these are the areas to go to become a counselor, a doctorate degree if you want to be a psychologist. If you are going, I just saw a thing that jumped up for liberal studies. If you want to find the liberal studies, you will click education within the grouping. So liberal studies, there's a lot of different areas that you could go into. I'm actually the liaison for the Crimmins School of Education, so you might just want to make an appointment with me and we could go over this too. The other thing is if you go back out, you miss a lot of good information if you just do the print version, because at the very bottom, there's professional associations and whatnot. So definitely go to the very bottom. A lot of students will forget about this part. And professional associations is basically a group of people that is within that career that does best practices. They have networking events, conferences. This is where you could find current information. It's also where you could find groups of people that you could do informational interviewing with and learn more about that career path. So definitely think about the professional associations as a student member. It's very inexpensive. We also have links for Occupational Outlook. So the Occupational Outlook is basically through the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. And Daniel's clicking on one right now. And basically with this, it's really great because it gives you what they do, the work environment, how to become one. Is there going to be jobs in the future for Job Outlook? And the other one that's really important when you are exploring careers is the similar occupations. Because if you read something and you're like, this is really good information, I'm kind of excited about it, what else can I do? Because when we start thinking about what we know and the majors that we have been exposed to is very, very small. So you want to be able to explore a little bit more. On this site alone is over 6,500 occupations. So when you start thinking about, if I asked each individual here to name 100, I think you might be struggling a little bit. And if I narrowed it down saying, well, just 50, you might still struggle. So this is an opportunity to get exposure to a lot of different occupations that you may not even knew existed.
All right, thanks for that, Jody. Once again, for that person that asked about liberal studies, if you want to go to the main one you mentioned, Jody, it's called education.
Yes, there's the education one.
So you can do exactly what Jody and I did and look at the print version and then start learning about the different fields you can go into. And also don't forget to check out those links towards the bottom to learn more about the associations or the different careers. And the great thing about these is that they usually come with a video or different information on how to prepare yourself for that type of career. So we're gonna come back to our main website. Once again, under the web-based resources, we have something similar to what can I do with this major, but we wanted to keep the focus to our Fresno State major specific and also to the local information for recent graduates. So when you click on majors and job outlook, you're going to be taken right into this Google Drive. This Google Drive houses the 8 academic colleges at Fresno State. I know it could be a little confusing. Fresno State is a university, then we have 8 colleges within it, but these are the colleges that house your major. So for the person that asked about the liberal studies major, that is housed under the Kremen School of Education. For myself, I am the career liaison to the College of Science and Mathematics. So majors like biology, chemistry, physics, those are housed under the College of Science and Mathematics. So we're going to keep the example of the psychology degree. We're going to click on Science and Mathematics. And here are on all the majors that are housed in that college. So hopefully this is making more sense on how you could be a specific major, but also belong to a specific college or school within Fresno State. So when you click in the college, here now you can see all those majors that I mentioned. and we're going to click on the psychology one for this example. Now, what you see in your screen, this is a PDF file that you can click and download to zoom in and look at the information on the bigger screen. But you're going to see the link to what can I do with this major. So this is one place to look at both of these sources of information. Right underneath, similar to what can I do with this major, you're going to see the categories of the different careers or occupations you can go into. And we listed the title. This number right here, the SOC code, Standard Occupational Code, you can copy and paste this into Google if this is a career that you want to learn more and potentially watch a video about. So that's one way to learn more about this specific career you see here. Here's a quick description of what people do usually with this job. The different job titles. Sometimes it's not called this, it has different names for this job. In addition, really quick important skills that you should be developing if this is the career path you want to go into. But more importantly, we have information at the national, state, and for some of these jobs, Fresno County data. Now, you may feel like this is too much information to digest, but it is really important because it comes up. I apologize for that. It looks like my microphone is a little low. Can you guys hear me better now? How's the sound? Is it a little better? Okay. Like I was mentioning, this information is important because you can get a sense of how much does this job pay. And that's why we put information about the low wage salary. Low wage salaries are usually entry-level salaries, and it gives you an idea of how much you, if you get a job like that, how much the job offer could be for your starting position. So we have information on that at the national, California, and even Fresno County data. So that's important to help you decide if that's a career you want to go into, if it's going to offer you the type of income that you want, or it gives you that information of, well, maybe I thought this career was going to pay more, and now I have a better sense of what it actually pays. In addition to salary, we also listed job outlook information. Job outlook information means, are there going to be jobs in the future in this area? So this is a way to kind of get a sense of what the future may predict based on data, and this is data coming from the federal government, and for the counties coming for the state of California. All this information was pre-COVID, so we want to make a note on that. So this may change in the future, but this was a way to kind of predict some of these occupations and the type of jobs that are going to be in the future. So each of the majors have this information in the same structure, so that way you can look at it and see the different type of jobs available for each of the majors. But for some of you that maybe want to know, okay, what are people that graduated with a degree, where are they working and how much are they making? We have all that information for all the majors at Fresno State towards the bottom. So here you're going to get a sense of the type of companies and also the title of the position that recent graduate students are working at. So this is a good way to get a sense of what type of employers are here in the Central Valley that hire these specific majors. In addition to that, we did a survey, so we collected data on how much are they making right after graduation. So this is, once again, another tool to help you explore majors, explore careers, explore where recent graduates are working. And this is information that we are continuously updating. So every year we're sending that survey out, and then we're collecting information from our recent graduates. So that this is a way to also know where the graduates are working. So like I said, we have these major sheets for all the colleges at Fresno State, and that's where the specific majors are housed. Do you want to add anything on this piece, Jody?
No, I think you covered it really well.
Okay, so we're going to head back to our Career Center website. And this is where we have our career assessment. Currently it's called Pathway U, but instead of clicking here, we want to show you the For Students webpage. Within the For Students webpage, you can now see the different areas of the type of services we can provide to you. And it could be in a one-on-one meeting or attending workshops like this. So we're going to focus on majors and careers. Like I just showed you, you can also find the Fresno State major outlook sheets in here. So when you click on this, it's going to take you back into the Google Drive. But we want to talk now about career assessments and how it is important to learn more about yourself, and how by learning about yourself, you can also be paired up with career matches. So there's a whole process to it. So I'll let Jody tell us about the digs
All
process.
right, so basically there is a career planning process, and so this allows you to make a correct decision making process of what career should I go into. Like I said before, I changed my major 5 times in 1 year. Basically, I chose my very first major because I asked my dad what I should major in, and he said business. And it really wasn't a good fit. I didn't do any exploration. All I did was just ask, and that's the wrong way to go about it. So the very first part that we're going to be really focusing on, because when you're choosing a major or career, it's discovering and investigate. And we call it digs because it's discover, investigate, engage, and then ultimately we want you to be successful, to succeed. So when you discover yourself, you're really looking at who am I, and you're looking at yourself a little bit differently than you typically would, because you're doing some assessments. And you have to think about, when you discover yourself, every single thing around you will ultimately determine what kind of career path you should go into. Even just asking yourself, what do I love? If I asked you a question, answer to yourself, I love what? If you answer that question and you said, I love my family, even that has a play in a career path, because if you love your family, what do you typically want? You want to have your weekends off so you can spend time with your family. You want to have flexibility so you could go to a loved one's soccer game or to an award assembly. So start thinking about everything around you and how that revolves around career. So that's discovering yourself. You look at your interests, your values, the roles that you play within your life that you enjoy. What type of skills do you have? But not necessarily just looking at skills and your talents, but do you enjoy those skills and do you enjoy those talents? Because I'm good at certain things that I hate doing. So you don't really want to put an emphasis on stuff that you really just don't care to do. And then really focus on, what do you need in life and your preferred environments. Do I want to stay here in Fresno? Do I want to work? Like for me, I prefer to work at a park. Think about Fresno State is like a park setting. I love being able to go to a beautiful setting and being able to walk around and things. So that's important to me. So you have to think about everything in your environment, and you really start discovering yourself. And that's through self-assessment, and also just focusing and being very alert of what makes you happy. The next area is investigate. And this is another part that I didn't do. You need to not assume what a career path is about. Like I said, I actually graduated with a liberal studies degree from Fresno State. I was going to be an elementary school teacher. I wanted to be a kindergarten teacher because I'm not that good with math, right? And think about it. And so when I got into a kindergarten class my senior year, and I was in a dual program, so I was actually in the credential program at the time, I found out within 5 minutes I don't like kids. So that would have happened needlessly. That shouldn't have happened, I should say, if I did some job shadowing, or if I spoke with a teacher, if I had a perspective of what it's like to be a teacher, not just the student. Because the last time I was in a kindergarten class, I was a kindergartner. Last time I was on an elementary campus, I was a student there. So it's really important to do that investigating, do some part-time employment, do some internships, getting involved, and taking that extra step. I worked while I was in college, but I was a waitress, so I didn't have time for that. It's very imperative for you to make the time, because that's going to make you a better employee, but it's also going to help you make sure that you're going towards the right direction within your career path.
Jody, if
Hey,
I can.
Jody, I have a question for you from the
Yes.
audience that I think is kind of fun to answer. Is someone said, or someone asked, how can you be good at something but not like to do that kind of work? Can you give an example of that?
Okay, so this is the bare minimum example. I'm great at ironing. I truly am. I'm great at ironing, but I hate to iron. I mean, so it goes down to something like that. Someone could be great at math and solving problems, but sitting down and solving problems all day is something that they would not like to do, but it's the analytical aspect of solving problems. But it's very simple. Some people might be really great in a team in sports. They're great in sports, but the thing that they complain about the sports the most is the camaraderie and being part of a team. So there's different sports that you could do that you're more solo versus working in a team. So there is a lot of different things that, if you really think about things that you're really good at, that you just really don't care to do. Does that make sense now? Hopefully.
Yeah, and I kind of gave the student an example too. I was a business major and worked in the business school, and I was really good at accounting. But then when I discovered that accounting was sitting at a desk in front of an Excel spreadsheet all day and filling out tax forms, there's an audit side to accounting, which is kind of people oriented. But I'm a real people oriented person, and I ended up going into human resources. Even though I was good at accounting, it's not something I really like to do.
And the same thing, I wanted to go in towards teaching because I'm very artistic. I like to read books. I like to be the artistic, and I always imagined what my classroom was going to be like, but I never imagined the kids in the classroom, right? So there's always a disconnect. So that's why it's really important to investigate, to make sure that what you're going towards is something that is obtainable and going to be enjoyable. You don't go through all of the schooling to be at the end hating your job. We all know those people that complain about their career on the weekends. They hate their job. They hate their job. That should not be you. Now, you might dislike something that's happening at work, but the job itself should always be satisfying.
Yeah, and if I can add something, Jody, on the part of exploring what a job is like, that's where the major sheets come in. That's where what can I do with this major can also help you out, or linking out to those videos to learn more about what the job actually looks like. Now, one of the things is to read about it, but another thing is to actually talk to someone that does it, or be able to job shadow someone, or do what is called an informational interview. Talk to someone and ask them questions like, what is it that you really like about your job? What is something that you wish you would have known before you chose that career? Because now they can give you that advice of someone that is actually doing that career. And for connecting with alumni or folks in those professional careers fields, that's where the Career Center can also come in and connect you with these individuals, so you can ask those questions or be able to job shadow when we're able to be around each other more. So that's something I wanted to add on how the major sheets, the major outlook, or what can do this major can help you. But next, we're going to talk about Pathways U.
And one last thing, we're talking about informational interviews. In one of those blue circles that I showed you at the very beginning, there's our success guide. There's informational interviewing in that success guide. So it'll tell you what exactly that mean, what does that mean, and questions you could ask. And right now is a great time to do informational interviewing because you could do it via Zoom.
Got it. So in terms of the career assessments, like Jody mentioned, the discover part, as a freshman or even as a sophomore, this is really great for you to start reflecting on your high school experiences. And as you learn about different things in college, you start thinking about your future career in terms of what your interests are, what type of environments you want to be in. For example, some science majors choose to work in labs because they like the idea of being in a lab and using equipment. But until they start taking some of their courses and are in a lab for long terms or long shifts, they realize that they'd rather be outside. So things like working indoors, working outdoors are also important. So that's where career assessments can help you get a better sense of who you are and what you like. So for the rest of the conversation, we're going to show you Pathway U, which is our current career assessment. And when you go to this section of the career assessments, you can click on the student handout. And what this is going to give you is a quick overview of what Pathways U looks like. It's going to take you right into the journey page. Then you're going to be able to take 4 career assessments. And we went ahead and told you to save 20 to 25 minutes so you can take the assessments, be able to think about the questions, and then cast your answers, and also to be able to start reading about your results. And we're going to show you a live demo of how to do that in a bit. As you learn more about yourself in those career assessments, you could also explore your career matches, and that's another way to start learning doing that investigative part. And not only that, you can also see the majors that are aligned with those careers. So this is what we're going to show you next. As I mentioned, when you click into the Pathways U link, you're going to be asked to log in. You can log in with your Fresno State username and password for your myfresnostate.edu. and that's going to take you right into this. You're going to see the section about the assessments, and I already took mine to be able to show you what it looks like. So click on assessments, and you're going to see a summary view of all 4 assessments here. Now, to learn more about each of the assessments, click on each of the tabs right here. And I'm going to ask Jody to tell us more about what type of information you can pull out from here, or how you can reflect about your results and how it applies to you.
All right, so when you start thinking about your interests, there's 6 different categories, and it's called John Holland. So that's the Holland Code, and that's where the realistic, investigative, artistic, social, enterprising, and conventional comes into play. And it's really important to look at that blue diagram at the very top right-hand side, because it'll show you how far. If it's really far to the right-hand side, that means that you're truly that, and that's an area like for Daniel, social is the highest. So social does not mean that he loves to be around a lot of people. He's very talkative, but it really means that he's in the helpful field. He enjoys helping people. So it's really important to read those on the further down where he's highlighting, because ultimately you need to look at that and say, okay, am I a 1, 2, or a 3? Typically on Pathway U, what it's going to do is give you the top 3. But sometimes when you look at that blue line, you'll find out that you might be just 1 or a 2, but he's pretty close for social, enterprising, and investigative. But conventional is also pretty close, and that's being very organized. So it's good to take a look at all of those areas and to get a good idea of how this will play into the realm of work. Some people enjoy working with data. Some people enjoy working with people. Some people like working with their hands. And so it's extremely important to read through this. It doesn't take much time. It's not really wordy, I would say. And there's also reflection questions on the right-hand side when you think back at your experiences. So take that time, because this is going to help you solve that meaningful question of, am I in the right major, or is this a good major for me? Because if you think about Pathway U is basically guiding you towards your career pathways. And if you're just coming out of high school, you understand career pathways, and that's why it's called Pathway U. And so taking this time will help you figure out whether or not this is a good area. And also, if you think about it this way, let's say that you are later into your sophomore year, even if you're a transfer student, it's all right, because this will also help you answer that question in an interview of why should we hire you. If you understand, well, I'm a very social person, I love helping others, and you could talk about it more meaningful. So this is actually good all the way through. The thing about interest, values, personality, the biggest thing is you're growing, you're evolving a lot within the first 3-4 years after high school. So it's really important to know that coming back and retaking the assessment again is perfectly fine. You could retake it often. But don't retake it just to get a different answer, but retake it because something has changed in your life. About every 6 months, I would say, just go and revisit to see if you're still going down the same, the pathway that you should be going towards. The other one is your values that Danny skipped. There you go. And so when we start thinking about your values, these are, I want to achieve things. I want to be very independent. I want someone to recognize me for the things that I'm doing. Relationships, like I mentioned before, I really care about my family. So I want to make sure that I build those relationships, but it's also within the work. I want to have relationships within, I want a good community. I want a lot of support, and I want good working conditions. These are things that they're assessing within the values. And definitely go through and read the different areas. Once again, look at the reflection questions on the right. And it's okay to look at it and say, I don't agree. Sometimes when you take an assessment, you're kind of in a funk. If you're overly happy when you're taking an assessment, the results might be a little bit different than they should. If you're kind of like pissed off, kind of, then the results will be also kind of skewed. You just kind of have to be in the void of just like chilling out, and that's a perfect time to take an assessment. Now, when we look at your personality, this is how you relate to the world around you. So openness to experience, being conscious, extroverted, agreeable. So on this one, the biggest thing, rather than reading a lot of it, if you just read the key takeaway, those will give you a really heads up and to really understand your personality. Now, we do have another personality assessment in our office called the Kiersey Temperament. So we could always do that one on top. So just remember, this is our go-to, our Pathway U, because it's very self-directed. But if you find that you're just not making those connections, just schedule an appointment with us. We could go over the Pathway U with you, or we could also ask you to take a couple more assessments that we have in our office. And then we also have the workplace preference. This is what you prefer. Now, the thing about workplace preference, some of you may not have ever quote unquote worked outside of like religious affiliated or just part-time. So this kind of sways a little bit, but this, a lot of times when you think about workplace preference, you could also think about when you worked in a group of people, in a team. So this is what you prefer: a lot of collaboration, being innovative, having that recognition, having always exceeding for excellence, or something that's stable that you know everyone's going to get the job done. So definitely think about workplace preference, especially at a freshman or even a sophomore, sometimes can sway so much. It's not a deciding factor as much as interest, values, and personalities at this time. Now, once you do an internship or you have some part-time employment behind you, workplace preference comes more into play.
Got it. Thanks for that information, Jody. So for those of you that are hearing this information for the first time, and like you saw, some of these could have a lot of text, some are shorter sentences. But if you, it could be a little confusing to understand all the information at once and digest it and reflect. What does it mean for me? How does this help me choose a career? Know that you're not alone, and you can meet with someone like Jody or myself, and we can set up an appointment and look more in depth into results and help you have that conversation of how to understand yourself better and what type of environments, what type of activities or majors or careers could also be a good match for you and who you are. So know that you can also connect with us to just look at your career assessments. Once you take all 4 of the assessments, you can begin exploring your career matches. So based on your interest, based on your values, based on your personality, the system or the program has an algorithm that matches you with specific careers. And these are important information to know as you explore those opportunities. So it looks like I'm still having some audio. Jody, do you mind telling them? I'm going to try to plug in my headphones.
All right, so you're
Let's throw in a question while
Yes.
we're presenting. So those of you that are in the audience, we're assuming a lot of you are freshmen. Maybe you're not, but maybe in the chat feature, do you have a career path already planned? Do you kind of know what you want to do already? I know you've maybe chosen a major. So maybe in the chat panel, tell us, yes, I have a career path. I'm going to do this, or I'm totally clueless. I'm lost. Just for us to get a feel for where's everybody at with their career planning coming in as a freshman into Fresno State?
And it's perfectly fine to be completely lost, just because that's actually a good place to be. It's actually easier as a counselor to work with someone who's open, because when you're lost, you're open to a lot of possibilities versus I really want to go into math or I really want to go into business, but it's just not fitting, and there's a reason it's not fitting. So it's perfectly fine to be lost. Pathway U is a perfect opportunity to start. It's a great starting point because you're able to take the assessment. It matches it up. It's basically you're discovering yourself, and that's where you do the self-assessments. Then you're going in and exploring the career and educational paths. That's what we're looking at right now. And then ultimately it connects you to a career that you will love. And it is just a great career planning platform, and it's a wonderful starting point. And I would say about 70% of you will be able to go through it very easily and have a solution at the end. And some of you might need a little bit more assistance, and that's perfectly fine. We are definitely here. We're here during the summer months. From 7 to 3:30, and then when the school semester begins, we're here 8 to 5. and you could schedule appointments, Zoom meetings, one-on-ones, via Zoom, via phone. And so we're readily available to walk through each of these areas with you.
Daniel and Jody, what about grad school? What could the career counselors help a student with in regards to grad school?
Now, the thing about grad school is the Pathway U will also connect you with the grad school aspects, but certain colleges have more grad school aspects. So if you think about, like I'm the liaison for the Crimmet School of Education. Crimmet School has one undergrad major, liberal studies, and the rest is all grad school. So we could definitely assist you in verifying that that is something that is going to be marketable. Not all career paths need to go to grad school. But there are several that require it. So we could definitely open that up and give you those options. Sometimes you need to become certified. Sometimes you need a license. Sometimes you need to become a registered. So you have to take more tests once you graduate. So there are a lot of different grad schools that are available at Fresno State. So if that is something that you're thinking about, but just to be realistic, don't sit there and start as a freshman saying I want to go to grad school. Instead, find that career path first and then decide whether or not grad school is going to be most beneficial for that career path. We can't even hear you, Danny. All right, so if you go from the career matches, go into the next section. Can you say something now, Daniel? Oh, yeah, you're there.
Perfect. Okay. So thanks for that, Jody. So what you see on your screen is once you start exploring career matches, you're going to see first careers that are grouped by subjects or like specific categories. So remember in my results, I had an S for social or my interest. So careers where I get to heal people or help people gain knowledge are coming up with a higher match on my results. So human services came up, education, finance, health science, and even some business. So this is a quick overview of careers that you might want to consider exploring. Like Jody mentioned earlier, sometimes the only careers that you know about are careers that your family knows about or people that you know or things you see on TV do. So this is another perfect way to explore careers that you probably never heard about. So when you click on careers, you should only be able to see those careers within that human services area or whichever other subject area. Now, if you want to look at your career results, regardless of any specific categories, you can click on the options, click all careers. That way you're not limited to only seeing specific groupings. Something important to think about is you're already at Fresno State, so use the filter to filter out careers that require a bachelor's degree. So this can help you shorten the list of matches. That way, you don't have to look at so many results. Another thing is if you have some majors in mind or majors that are calling your attention, you can also include the name of the major here. For example, we were talking about psychology. Let me spice it up a little bit. Let me put geology. That's one of my majors that I oversee as a career liaison. I get to see different careers that match with that specific major, but also I get to see if they're a fair match, a weaker match, or a strong match. So that's another way to explore careers with the bachelor's degree filter and also with the college. So let's stay with this first result. When you click on an actual career, you're going to get to see similar information that we've been talking about, like in the major outlook sheet or the professional outlook template. A quick description of the job, different job titles, the types of activities you would do in that job, like the type of assignments that are typical in this environment. You're also going to get to see the majors at Fresno State that align with that career. And if by doing this, you learn about a new major, you want to learn more in detail what that major is, you click on Learn More. And that's going to link you out to that department's website where you can explore those degrees or also learn about the opportunities within that major for you as a student, for example, as a biology student. Coming back to pathways you were sold. It's important to start looking at those knowledge, skills, and abilities because this is what is going to come up when you are ready to graduate and apply for a full-time job. So this is a good way to start reflecting on what type of experiences or skills you should be gathering to be able to be competitive when you want to apply to those jobs in future graduation. So this is a good way to start planning ahead as well. Some of the careers have a video. Some of you, like myself, are very visual. So I like to see pictures or I like to see what type of activities they do and read about them, see them in action. This can give you that visual component. And then information about the salaries. Remember, average salaries are not the same as entry level or starting salaries. So it's important to look into this type of information. Jody, looks like my audio is coming in and out again.
Yep. All right. And so when you start thinking about your average salary, this is the middle, the median salary. So that's looking at the very lowest and the highest, and then finding that in between part. And so that's the average salary. But definitely look at local info because the average salary is always a little bit distorted compared to the local. And then we also have the average job outlook. You always want to know, is there going to be jobs in the future? Right now, because of COVID and the pandemic happening, everyone is saying everything's swaying. It is swaying, but it always goes up and down. It's like the W effect. So right now, it's on the low. It's going to go back to a new normal, but everything's going to plateau again to being kind of like what it was before. Over on the right-hand side, you'll also see where it says bachelor's degree or master's. It's very important to read what's listed there because certain career pathways definitely need a master's degree or a doctorate degree. So this is where you would ultimately decide, all right, do I really want this career? Now, always remember graduate degrees put it in perspective. A graduate degree typically takes 2 years. So it's an additional 2 years. Now, I always say, think about how fast high school went. That was 4 years. So you could ultimately get it done pretty quick, 2 years program. And certain masters require a lot of prerequisites to get into that master's. Let's say you want to go towards an MBA and you are liberal studies. Yeah, you're going to have to take a lot of prerequisite courses to be able to do that. But there's other master programs that don't require prerequisites as much, like going into counseling. They might require you to take 2 or 3 classes, and that would be it. And it doesn't matter what your undergrad was in. So always take a look at that and say, okay, does this require a master's degree? What does that look like? Does it require a doctorate degree? A doctorate degree will take 4 to 7 years, depending on what type of doctorate degree you're looking at. The other areas is there's a find jobs. And so if you click the find jobs, this is what's really nice about the system is because now you could actually look at the job titles that you were just looking at under careers, and he's going to look at job titles. So see there it says clinical program manager, clinical research associate. So he just chooses research associate, plugs that in, looks under the location, and you could say search jobs. And depending on the different areas, so you could take off the word associate and just search under research and just narrow it down even to broaden it up. I don't know why it's doing that, but it is. But ultimately, under the filters, you could do the relevancy, the date added, the strong matches, the distance within, and whether or not it's full-time, part-time. So this is where you could even find part-time employment that's really relevant towards the career path that you're going towards. I was hoping he could find something that would click into it. Do you want to try something else, Danny? How about just type in manager? Sorry about that.
Jody, someone in the
There we
audience
go.
asking, Jody, someone
Yes.
in the audience is asking where you're at on the website. So maybe explain a little bit that you're kind of digging pretty deep into Pathways U, but we're still on the Career Center website.
Yeah, so we're basically on the Career Center website, and so that's just /careers, and then we went into Pathways U. So if you go into Pathway U, and once you click into Pathway U, it's your single login, so you'll use your Fresno State login to get inside. Once you're inside, this is if you click over where it says jobs, that's where we're located at. So what's really nice about Pathway U, it has my journey, the assessments, it's all listed on the top. So you're able to find the jobs. It's usually listed 2 or 3 places on each page, but it is listed at the very top. So if you click jobs, that's where we're currently located at. And so if he types in manager, then what's really nice about this, it'll say this is a fair match, this is a good match, and even if you do for part-time jobs, this is still going to give you some skills and abilities that's transferable to ultimately the career you want to go into, or something that's a good match for you. So even though it's a part-time job, something that you're just trying to make ends meet, you're going to find some enjoyment over it. Mine, on all of my assessments, it always said bartender. Was I ever a bartender? Yes. Was I a food server? Yes, because I enjoy being around people. I enjoy helping people. That's why I ended up becoming a counselor. So even though this is something that is just for part-time jobs, it's still something that will be very beneficial for you because you're going to enjoy your part-time job. And if you enjoy a job, you're going to pull out a lot more transferable skills that will apply and highlight on your resume towards an actual career path. And then, oh, and and so ultimately you could always review your results, and you could always set up an appointment. So if you click on set up an appointment, it's going to go directly towards us, and you could actually set up an appointment with us. It's going to say you could call our main number, you could email us, but then there's also Find Your Career Liaison. If you notice up at the top, if you click on Find Your Career Liaison, there is a career liaison for every single college. So you could email for the Jordan College of Ag, that's Mary Willis, you could email her directly, and so you don't have to go through our main site to schedule an appointment. I'm Crim School of Education, and if you want somebody that, the other thing about when you're thinking about this, let's say that you are social science, a social science major, but ultimately you're on the education track. Sometimes students don't know, should I see my liaison? Yeah, definitely see your liaison, which would be Sheila Gallagher Price for social science. But when the conversation turns towards the teaching credential, I really want to go towards teaching, then you would definitely want to come and talk to me regarding that, because I know the ins and outs of what that really means and what a credential all definitely means. So think about the future, but also work with the current one, because Sheila will know everything that's happening currently in the social science department that might be very exciting for you to learn about. Plus, like I said, I changed my major 5 times. So just because you're on a current path now doesn't mean that you won't change maybe. Most students will change it at least once while you're here at Fresno State. If you're a transfer students will also change majors, so that's perfectly fine. That's why we're here, and that's why we're doing this webinar today. So you know there's a system, Pathways U, but there's also a lot of information that we could give you on one-on-one basis. Any other questions? I'm waiting for Debbie to see.
No, Jody, you've pretty well answered them. You know, there's some specific questions about majors, but we've been referring them to set up appointments with their college liaisons. So we're just watching the chat. Are there any other questions we're excited you're here today.
But once again, if you just go to our homepage, Daniel, do you want to click on the homepage? A lot of information is listed here on the homepage. So definitely go in. I always tell students it's okay, click around, you're not going to break anything. So click into For Students, Money Management Center sits under us to find part-time jobs. That will be Higher Fresno State will be our Thursday webinar, but that's the link right there. We have a clothing closet, so when we actually get back into our office, there's something that you could go and see. We also have a cute little video in the middle. Our career success guide, how I was mentioning informational interviewing, that's listed in there for our success guide. So you have there's also a lot of sample resumes in there. So this is a resource that you're going to definitely love once you start looking into it. And then once again, all of those circles at the bottom, those are our 24/7. Feel free to go in at any time, watch those career spots. really quick videos, 3-minute videos that tell you a lot of information. And this could all of our media could be looked at from a phone, from a tablet to a desktop. It doesn't matter. And then lastly, at the very bottom, there's like LinkedIn, online networking. It's all about networking right now. That's one thing that when you start thinking about what career path, start asking everybody what career path they went through. Ask loved ones, ask instructors, anybody that you meet. Just be open about it, because a lot of people around here are Fresno State graduates. Our graduates stay here within the local area. So even if you're at the bank and someone's working as a teller, ask them if they go to Fresno State or if they've graduated from Fresno State, and listen to their path, because this will give you a heads up about the variety of career paths. We only know what we've been exposed to, and that exposure is very small. We're exposed to our family and our friends. We're exposed to the community that we're around us, and our number one exposure is media, what we see on TV and what we stream into our phones and on TV. So if you start looking at those 3 areas, there is so much more out there. Like I said, that one site, Occupational Outlook Handbooks, has over 6,500 career paths that's listed, that's highly documented. So there's so much out there, and we know so little, because even as a career counselor, I don't need to know every single career path out there, because I know the resources to obtain that information. And that's what I'm giving you today, is now you're knowledgeable about where can I find that information. So any other questions that came up?
No, I think you've answered all the questions, Jody. Great job.
All right.
Jody, thank you.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us.